As always, a pleasure to have you here on this exciting Tuesday afternoon. Of course, get in touch with us on X Spaces, on Facebook, on YouTube, and of course, on my JoyNews. And I'll share your comments with the rest of the world. I will start with the economy because President John Mahama has tasked the newly sworn-in members of the National Development Planning Commission to consolidate existing national development plans into one coherent, inclusive and forward-looking development plan. Now, speaking during the swearing-in ceremony at the Jubilee House, the President emphasized the need for a broad national consensus, calling on the Commission to work in consultation with Parliament and the people. He also recommended that the eventual plan be subjected to regular review to reflect changing national priorities.
This framework will guide the operations of ministries, departments, agencies, and metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies over the next 4 years. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to briefly address an issue of growing national interest, and that is the urgent call for a long-term national development plan. Ghanaians increasingly demand a stable and predictable path for national development that transcends our electoral cycles and partisan politics. Here I'm reminded of the words of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah in his visionary 7-year development plan, and he stated, "The economic policies will lack direction and consistency unless they are firmly related to a clear vision of the structure of the economy towards which we are moving. It is only in the longer view," he said longer view, "that it is rational to project any really radical transformation of our economic system." And he goes on to say, "In the very short period, we remain prisoners of our past." And so there already Nkrumah was projecting that we should have a longer view of our path of development. Indeed, nearly 70 years after independence, our economy continues to rely heavily on a narrow range of primary commodities with limited diversification and value addition. This reality reflects the persistence of structural constraints that continue to hold us back, proof that in many respects we remain, as Nkrumah said, prisoners of our past. Since the completion of the 40-year National Development Plan in 2017, under the leadership of Dr. Ni Mue Thompson, not Moy, Ni Mue Thompson, who now returns to chair the Commission, other frameworks with similar long-term ambitions have emerged. Notable among these are the Ghana Beyond Aid Charter, the Ghana at 100 Long-Term Development Framework, and the Vision 2057 Perspective Framework. I urge the Commission to consolidate all these various efforts into a coherent, inclusive, and forward-looking national development plan. This must be done in close collaboration and consultation with Parliament and the people's representatives to ensure that the final plan reflects a broad national consensus and is subject to regular review in response to evolving domestic and global challenges. The task before you is immense, but I'm confident in your collective expertise, experience, and commitment. Let us work together to deliver a development plan that charts a bold and transformative path for our dear nation Ghana, and one that will guide future generations and liberate us from the limitations of our past. I congratulate you on your appointments, and I wish you success in your work ahead, and may your work be fruitful to guide Ghana into a future of immeasurable possibilities. I thank you, and may God bless our homeland, Ghana.
So the National Development Planning Commission is chaired by Dr. Ni Mue Thompson, and he's been reiterating the areas the NDPC will focus on. This is not the first time he's leading this particular course. Let's listen to him what he says after the president has set the ball rolling.
7 commissioners a reduction from 49 in the past. It may still seem large, but they work through 8 subcommittees in the following areas: the economy, with the focus on fiscal and monetary policies. And here I'd like to give a nod to the 2 men of the moment, Dr. Forsen and Dr. Johnson Isiama. We will be working closely with them in drawing on their experience and knowledge. The number 2 is transport and logistics, which will be critical to the development of a 24-hour economy. Number 3, energy and private sector development. Number 4, agriculture and natural resources. 5, employment, productivity and earnings. 6, public sector reforms and governance. 7, social development. And 8, infrastructure and land use. And we put land use there because of the critical role of land acquisition and land use in infrastructure development. Through the work of the committees and research done by the technical staff, the Commission is expected to advise you, Mr. President, as it has been doing for successive presidents since 1994. But the law also requires the Commission to provide a wider platform for Ghanaians from all walks of life, including parliamentarians, political parties, faith-based organizations, sector ministries, district assemblies, traditional authorities, civil society organizations, think tanks, and individuals who have something to say about their country, Ghana, among others, to contribute to national development planning for the long, medium, and short terms. It is a comprehensive framework that blends popular demands with structured research. No one is left out. Besides development planning, Mr. President, the Commission is also mandated to monitor and evaluate the performance of government. This is done through what we call annual progress reports, which include a wealth of information, but sadly remain very obscure. We will change that under this Commission, while also digitizing the process to give the public the chance to do what is called civic auditing. That is, the public's chance to monitor the performance of government in real or near real time. Last but not the least in importance is the Commission's role as the brain trust of government on a variety of topics of relevance to Ghana's development agenda. And here I would just like to highlight a couple of them. One of them has to do with the need for us to put a human face to development. For too long, we've heard about GDP growth, and GDP growth, which remains very abstract to the public and even some professionals. What we've decided to do for the next Commission is to have what I call 3-dimensional or 3D approach to measuring economic performance, which means that we'll measure growth in GDP, we'll measure growth in employment, and we'll measure growth in wages. These are the things that are most relevant to the public and not just mere statistics. And running through all this will be productivity. And I'm glad here I would like to quote you, Mr. President, from something you said last year during the campaign. You said, Ghana must function efficiently. This is the most intuitive definition of the word productivity as used by economists.
Of course, that's Dr. Nimoy Thompson. Remember that in the first half of President Mahama's administration, he was the chair of the National Development Planning Commission and is returned to chair the same commission. Now, among the things that they are supposed to do, remember that as part of the dictates of the 1992 Constitution, the president, at least 2 years upon assumption of office, must present to Parliament the government development plan that the government hopes to pursue during the term of office of that particular presidency. And President Mahama is taxing them to look at Vision 2057, a 100-year development plan that was put together by the National Development Planning Commission. Also, the Ghana Beyond Aid document that was put together by the Akufo-Addo administration. CRBS, all of them can be fused together to come up with a comprehensive and non-partisan development agenda that will help spearhead the development of this country. Now, my guests will be joining me in the story that we are focusing on. They are all economists who will try to understand if this is achievable and whether governments beyond their manifestos will buy into a development agenda that's been put together by an entity called the National Development Planning Commission. But let's stay on the economy because government is fiercely rejecting the NPP's 2024 flag bearer, Dr. Bawumia, claim that the Cedi Stability isn't linked to any government policy, insisting the introduction of the gold board is the game changer. And a former Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, has dismissed what he calls misplaced credit being given to the governing NDC for the cedi's recent appreciation. He argues that the current 16% rise against the US dollar and other trading currencies since the start of the year is the result of structured economic recovery plans rolled out by the previous NPP administration. As part of his thank you tour of the Upper West region, President Mahama praised the finance minister and the governor of the central bank for the impressive performance of the Ghanaian cedi.
Since taking over the reins of government, our focus has been on stabilizing the economy. We therefore presented to Parliament in March this year a budget which was aimed at severely trimming expenditure and channeling the saved revenue into priority programs as promised in our manifesto. I'm happy to report to you that our efforts to stabilize the economy have begun to yield results. And it is evident in the improved performance of our local currency and also a gradual reduction of prices of goods and services in the market. I wish to commend the Honorable Minister of Finance and the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, along with their teams, for the close collaboration and coordination they are displaying in this economic turnaround.
Well, so that's President Mahama. This was last week at the thank you tour in the Upper West. Now, this morning, at the meeting with the European Union, he also spoke about the fact that Ghana's reserves is also playing a lead role in stabilizing the cedi. Now, what is the cedi looking today as we speak? According to the Bank of Ghana table, they released this morning, the US dollar is trading at 12 Ghana cedis, 223 pesos, and then selling at 12 Ghana cedis, 2361. As against the pound sterling, is 16.3 for buying and selling at 16.346. And for the euro, is going for 13.73 and selling at 13.74. So this is the table that the Bank of Ghana released this morning, which gives an indication that indeed something is being done. That is the reason why the cedi is having a good run against these three major trading currencies. But speaking in London during an interaction with the Joint Executive Forum of the MPP as part of its UK thank you tour, the MPP's flag bearer in the last election, Dr. Bawumia, insisted the current government has not introduced any policy that could explain the cedi's gains. Listen.
One of the things that if you ask a simple question to the NDC to point out exactly what policy they have implemented that has resulted in the appreciation of the cedi, they cannot tell you one. They only passed their budget in March. They've not even issued any contracts and paid for anything, pretty much. So you cannot ascribe what is happening to the currency to a policy that they have implemented. There's no such policy that has been implemented that has had that impact yet. For me, we had anticipated the impact of gold in this economy. I talked about it when we got into dire straits in 2022. And so that is a big backing for the currency. I mean, they have been in office so far. They've not even increased it by 1 ton. 1 ton, one. Not a single 1 ton. They haven't increased it by. But people, after all the noise of the election, people are paying attention to our reserves. That is one thing, which we have built to 30 tons. Secondly, you've mentioned that the US dollar itself is on the decline globally. And that has also strengthened. If you go to Zambia, for example, the kwacha has gained a lot of ground also because you have the US dollar declining in value because of what is happening in the US with all of that. So I think those are critical. And then there's the third element, is that they are not spending. I mean, if you are managing an economy, you have to pay your bills. They are not paying IPPs, for example. This is why the DUMSO is so acute, and they are not paying contractors. So when you are not spending, there's less pressure on your currency. So those are some of the reasons why you are seeing an appreciation of the currency. But if you look at it, if we had not instituted the gold purchase program as well as the gold for oil program, our economy would have collapsed.
So Dr. Bawumia is demanding to know what exactly the NDC administration has done to take credit for the stabilization of the city. Now, there's a response coming from the finance minister. Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Ampemdakon has pushed back against the claims, describing Dr. Bawumia's assertion as unfounded. He highlighted key interventions, including the establishment of the Gold Board, as one of the things that government has done to stabilize the currency.
In fact, when the president was swearing in the finance minister, one charge that he gave him was that Ghanaians expect him to stabilize the city. And he said Ghanaians expect him to reduce the cost of living for them. And so on assumption in office, the finance minister has taken that charge from His Excellency very seriously, and he's leading us to ensure that the city is stabilized. We are working closely with the Bank of Ghana to achieve this important charge that the president has charged him to do. You will recall that before the introduction of the budget, the finance minister led all of us to Makola, also to interact with market women. And one thing that came out clearly from our interaction with the market women was that they wanted the dollar to be stable. They wanted the city to be stable. And so that is what we've been working towards since we started. I am not surprised the statement that the former vice president made. A former vice president who was only interested in sloganeering will definitely make such a statement. The difference between our administration and theirs is that we are not shouting about slogans. We are only delivering.
But then he's challenging you to, sorry to chip in here, he's challenging you to at least point to one policy that has resulted or attributed to the appreciation of the cedi. Can you tell us those? We have
spoken extensively about the introduction of the Gold Board. And we told Ghanaians that the Gold Board was going to be the game changer. Look, the statistics that was issued by the Gold Board indicated that from January to April 2024, we had exported gold to the tune of about $860 million. Today, with the introduction of the Gold Board and the way we have channeled all the export through the Gold Board, we have accumulated and exported in excess of $2.7 billion worth of gold. This has been the game changer. We have also revived the derailed IMF program that they bequeathed to us. That has also given confidence in the economy. Look, since we took over, you have seen that consistently, because we have reduced borrowings, the treasury bills rates have been reducing consistently.
All right, so we've set the foundation quite firmly. Now let's understand what really is going on. And joining us on Zoom is a professor of finance, William Kwesi Prepra of the Andrews University in the United States of America. Also joining me on Zoom is a member of Parliament for Wale Wale and member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, Dr. Kabiru Mahama Tia. Good afternoon, gentlemen, and welcome to the program.
Good afternoon to you.
Great. So let me start with you, Dr. Prepra. The cedi is gaining strength against the US dollar, against the British pound sterling, and against the euro. Instead of we being happy as usual, we are, attacking it with political lenses. First, let me pick your thoughts on what is happening between the NDC and here before we come to what really is fueling the cedi strength.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you and your viewers. As an associate professor for finance, one course that I also teach is governance, and we go into policy. So I think the initial conflict is for us to understand when we say government policy, what does it mean? Simply put, government policy is the action that the government chooses to do or not to do. So there are other definitions that will say that any action or rule of principle that the government used to make a decision. So that is the literal definition for government policy. We know the policies that Dr. Bawumia has mentioned, and we know the impact. There were some actions they took, and there were some actions they did not take. The data points to the fact that the actions he mentioned that they took in 2022 about the gold for oil and the rest.
Right.
We also saw that the impact on the exchange rate was in the depreciation form.
Right.
And we have seen that this new government has also taken some actions and also not taken some actions. And the impact on the exchange rate, as we have seen, is an appreciation. So if you ask me as a scholar, every policy or every action or inaction of a government will have an impact on the currency that we are talking about. So we are talking about the exchange rate. So that is what is really, really happening. And now let me, probably if I can go into, I'm going to talk about the theories and then I'll come to the practice.
Of course. So help us understand what may be fueling the cedi's strength against the US dollar, for example. Some say is global reaction.
So in theory, the first thing that causes a currency exchange rate to move up and down is based on demand and supply. So if you go back to the era of the NPP, what was the demand and the supply situation on the Forex? We could know that it got worse. That is why we asked IMF to come in. And IMF gave us that 3 billion, which we are receiving it in tranches. So we saw that there was an issue with the demand and supply. The government took some actions, as I've explained, government policy, and they did not take some action. So we know the impact. So that is the first element. The second element is the differential changes in inflation. So what was the inflation rate during the NPP time? What is the current inflation rate? We noticed that inflation went very high to 54% and started coming down. And in the NDC government era, we have also seen that the decline is still continuing and is declining not at a faster pace as expected. So inflation is one major element that causes your foreign currency whether to appreciate or depreciate. But there's a trajectory trend that from both NPP era and NDC era, inflation was coming down. The other factor is interest rate. So this is where we've seen a reverse of interest rates between the NPP time and NDC time. If you notice, in the NPP era, interest rate was rather going up. And in the NDC era, they have taken a certain action both on the open market operation by the central bank and then the treasury bill aspect by the Minister of Finance to make sure that interest rate comes down. So that is why you have seen the treasury bill rate has moved from the 23% in last year, 2024, and now hovering around 15%. So this is a government policy decision that they have taken. So if Dr. Bawumia wants an answer, I'm using theory. I'm just addressing.
Right.
One of them is that is a monetary policy theory that they have used to address the interest rate. And when you have a country where your interest rate is dropping, the impact is that in the form of exchange rates, your currency will appreciate. We did not see that in the NPP era. Then the other aspect is income levels. Inflation will have a major impact on the income levels of the people who live within your country. We noticed that in the NPP era, inflation was very high, so income levels were weakened.
Right.
we have noticed that within the last 4 months, income levels, inflation is going down, and income levels are seen relatively strengthening. It's very small, but it's a strengthening. So this is one of the major factors. Then the most important factor, the other two, is the one to me which I've seen is a major policy, is government control. When we say government control includes expenditure patterns. So we noticed in the NPP era, remember, there were a lot of scholars telling the government to reduce expenditure. That is a control. They were not controlling the expenditure, and now we are seeing that the government is not spending, which is a policy they have decided to take, not to take a certain action, and it's strengthening the city. So we have to wait a little bit when they start to spend.
But in terms of the expenditure bits, I mean, government cannot continue not to spend, especially when you have campaign promises that you need to meet. And so...
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that we have to wait to see the impact of when government start to spend. So that is one aspect of government control. Government control is also a policy decision on how they use the central bank to intervene in the market, the forex market. We've noticed that the central bank within the last 4 months has pushed a lot of foreign currency into the economy, which is a government policy they have decided to do. And it's one of the reasons why there is more supply of foreign currency in the market and causing a reduction. I talked about the open market operation of the central bank. They have used a policy to make sure that lending to the central bank gives you a higher interest in a shorter period than to go and buy treasury bill. So which is an important government policy on government control. And in that way, they are trying to use it to have an impact on inflation, interest rate, and also how the government said. The last one,
right,
we call it expectation. The expectation is what is going to happen in the future. That will let rational beings, citizens, decide, should I hedge or put my money in my local currency or in the foreign currency? In the US, where I am, even though the Fed has supported a slight reduction in the policy rate because inflation rate has gone down, there is a tendency that, or an expectation that in the US is going to move into recession because of the trade war.
Right.
And that is what is making the US currency a little bit weaker. And in the case of Ghana, the expectation of the gold board coming in to bring in foreign currency is also another factor, giving the reverse impact and making the cedi appreciate. So these are the theoretical aspects that is really underpinning all the theories, the issue that we have seen, that what the factors causing the cedi to see a relatively, not relative, because 15% is very, very significant in terms of policy to see appreciation. So these are the theories.
Okay.
But then in practice, so many things can happen.
Of course. And I'll come back to you to ask, so what can we do to sustain this strength? And when we start spending, are we likely going to see the cedi jump from the current 12 to the 16 that it hit before it started to come back? But let me bring in Dr. Kabiru Mahamatia. He is a member of Parliament for Wale Wale and, of course, member of the Finance Committee of Parliament. Dr. Mahama, good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you and to my colleague on the other side.
So a lot of explanations. The latest one being President Mahama, who says the improved performance of the local currency is largely supported by the strengthened gross international reserves, which have surged from $8.9 billion in 2024 to $10.6 billion by April 2025. He knows that this upward trend reflects growing investor confidence and enhanced external financial buffers. You say that this may be artificial, or better still, the NDC is enjoying the fruit planted by the NPP before leaving our office. They say that their own policies is what is working the magic, not necessarily what they inherited.
Well, so the point has to be made that, and let me start off from what Prof stated. Some of the theoretical postulations may seem to be problematic. It is common and trial learning that whenever you have your interest rate coming down, demand for your currency would be low because people would not want to invest in your currency in a way that they will get returns. And if you realize, one of the explanations we give for why the United States dollar is going up is whenever the Fed raise the policy rate, people would then be demanding the United States dollar, just like any currency. So, antithesis, if someone says that the lowering of interest rate or interest rate going down is contributing to the appreciation of the currency, it doesn't sit with the theory of the practice. We may go into the causal factor. And let me also note the point that correlation is not same as causation. So when you see factors being correlated, i.e., interest rates are coming down, and then depreciation of our currency is also slowing, or our cedi is appreciating, it doesn't necessarily mean that the interest coming down is what is causing the depreciation, the appreciation of the cedi. Right. They are only correlated. There may be other factors, but it doesn't mean that one is causing the other. Theoretically, they are not supposed to, cause one another. They are supposed to have inverse relationship, i.e., higher interest rate, appreciation of your currency, right? That is supposed to have supposed to have inverse relationship. So when you see them having, positive correlation, it means that it is more or less not a causal relationship. It's more or less that other factors may be accounting for that, and we'll come to that in practice. Now, the former vice president noted that you cannot, if you ask the NDC to pinpoint one specific measure they put in place to ensuring that the cedi appreciate, they cannot. And you heard the explanation from my respected brother and colleague, the deputy minister. They are saying the gold board since January to now, they have exported about 2 billion worth of gold. But there was no gold board in January. There was no gold board in February. Gold board came in somewhere the latter part of March.
Yes, after Parliament, passed the law.
So that means that they cannot be attributing it to the gold board. Gold board has only been in operation for only a month. There was already a system in place for the purchase and export of gold. That is the Precious Mineral Marketing Company, right? That engine, that vehicle was in existence, even predating even the NPP government. Okay, so a conscious government effort to start mobbing up using the Precious Mineral Company was through the NPP. And that was part of meetings where the Ewe, who was the then managing director, came into the meeting. We agreed that every major mining company, large mining company, should sell at least 20% of their mine minerals to the Precious Mineral Marketing Company, where all small-scale miners were to sell to the Precious Mineral Company. So it was a vehicle put in place. Gold board only comes in to take the whole monopoly, right? And that is the difference. So no one should dare say gold board and start mentioning January, February, when gold board came into play in March as an institution. So they should discount the gold board factor. Gold purchase program, yes. Then that one was instituted by the NPP, and their government is continuing. They are continuing. Again, they are mentioning factors about, I've already told you about the interest rate issue.
And the inflation as well. I said, and the inflation as well.
The only factor is government decision not to spend. That's the only decision. And I'm saying that with the greatest respect, every government can decide not to spend. But it also has effect on the economy because production would go down because government is not spending. So you are basically also crippling the size of your economy by your decision to control the exchange rate. And so when the former vice president mentioned them to pinpoint specific measures, I intended that they would have mentioned something like of a policy. For instance, from the monetary side, one can acknowledge that they put out the policy of hiking the policy rate. But is there anything novel in that particular decision? No, because every government have one way or other hiked the policy rate, and some of them have led to marginal gains. Some of them have not led to the expected result because there's no congruence between the monetary policy and the fiscal policy. So for me, largely, the foundation for these particular gains we are getting and the steep nature of the appreciation of the currency is largely due to structural intervention put in place that were inherited. Of course, every government will have to inherit something, including liabilities, much as they are inherited assets. But you cannot account for the appreciation of the cedi without talking about the gains of the NPP. Look, the NPP left government with over 8 billion worth of reserves, which the president himself has admitted.
8.9.
They have added some only 2 billion of reserves. So those factors are contributing, but you cannot pinpoint and say that we did something significantly different from the NPP in a way that is contributing to these particular gains we are getting. And the vice president is very right when he mentioned and challenged them to mention one specific thing new. GOLDBOD, yes, but GOLDBOD only came into play at the latter part of March. Less than 1 month. Less than 1 month.
Yeah, Dr. Chief, I can just come in quickly. And one of the, I have been speaking to some officials at the Bank of Ghana, and they tell me that when Dr. Siama assumed office, one of the things that he did relates to foreign remittances. And on the average, I'm told that we get between $300 and $500 million in terms of remittances. But the dollar was held by entities that will credit those beneficiaries with cedis. But what is done is to reform the status such that the dollar really comes into the system. And it's one of the reasons why we are enjoying this windfall. Can that be
I don't know what he means, but it's been practiced that whenever I'm in the United States, I'm going to send money to my old mother in the village. In dollars. It hits the respective agency in dollar. Then they will give the beneficiary cedi equivalent. That has been the practice. So I don't get the reforms that he's making, because the receiving entity or the bank or the, if you like, the MoneyGram agency that's receiving the money is receiving it in dollars. And that's why we are able to account every year the foreign exchange, the remittances that come to the country by way of dollar term. We don't do it in cedi. We do it in dollar because that is the value we receive in the country. So Mr. Governor cannot say that he's done something new in that regard. It's been a system in place, even before the NPP, that every foreign remittances come in dollars, in hard currency. If it is Japanese yen, it will come in Japanese yen. If it's in dollar, it will come in dollar. But they will credit or they will give the recipient the cedi equivalent of that.
All right. Dr. Prepra, the question is, how do we sustain this? If you are paying mortgage in dollars, this is good news for you. Government will also be losing revenue because of a weakened dollar, and of course, oil revenue and everything that is coming in as dollars. So it is both sides appears. You enjoy here, you lose here. But the question is, how do we sustain this? If government should begin to spend, that clearly will have an impact on how this will go. APSA says that by the end of 2025, they expect the dollar to trade at 14 cedis to the cedi. And so whatever we are experiencing now, we cannot rely upon it 100% and say that we are off the woods.
I think when I was talking, I made mention of my last point, which is expectation. The way we can sustain the currency cedi strengthening is the expectations. When we say expectation, that is what are investors looking into the factors I mentioned: inflation, interest rates, government spending, and income levels in the country into the future. So if I'm an investor in Ghana and I'm seeing that the government is going to overspend in the future, that expectation will let me know that then the currency is going to devalue. So first thing, the government must spend within its budget. And I've read from the budget statement so many programs that the government wants to spend on. The government must make sure they stay within the approved expenditures given by Parliament. The government must also make sure that the expected revenues that they have stated is what they are working towards to achieve and go over it. So we look at, are we meeting the revenue targets or even going beyond that? That expectation will inform us that the city is going to strengthen.
But clearly, that will be a challenge, especially, let me give an example of the difficulties government is faced with, especially in the energy sector. Here's the case: the minister tells us that government is looking for $15 billion to support the importation of crude to power our generation plants. And this is outside of tariff, which means that government will have to go and look for the money. Now, the debt in the energy sector alone is over 80 billion Ghana cedis. Government will have to find money. Otherwise, an independent power producer will switch off the engine, and then the economy suffers. So clearly, government have no option than to spend. And when that happens, the impact.
Yeah, I'll come back. Let me address it. So it's also on the same line of expectation. What is the government doing now, and what do we expect in the future? Yesterday, I listened to the energy minister saying that they have started negotiating with these IPPs, which is expectations.
Right.
He mentioned that they are going strictly with the cash waterfall mechanism, which means that there's not going to be deviation, so which is expectation. So it gives some form of assurance that these IPPs are receiving some cash inflows. So it is positioning is that as the government is not going to deny them of cash to cause them to say, let's turn off our taps to reduce the revenues that they are expecting from these IPPs, to make sure there is doing so. The next line is, what plans is the government putting in place to pay the outstanding debt? That is the one that we see in the budget, that they've made some provisions that they have to make some money released to them. And as I've mentioned, with these expectations, if the government stays within this program activities, is something that is going to make sure make the city have that kind of stability. The moment we see a deviation, that is why you see S&P, Moody's, and all the rest are saying you are not following your own laid out programs,
right? And
that will trigger down into the factor that the city will have to devalue. And one factor, which is very, I think both NPP and NDC, mostly when they talk, they mention the gross international reserve. For me, as a scholar, I mostly pay attention to the net international reserve. So that is the critical part, because the gross, the moment we start paying money from the reserve fund, we want to see the net international reserves, how many months will the country, that is the free money, that is the free cash flow the country will have. So that is what we must pay attention to. Mentioning the gross international reserve of 8 billion.
Currently at 10.9 billion.
Yeah. Don't forget, this year and next year, we have to pay roughly 2 billion in terms of Eurobond loans and the rest. So what is the impact? So the net international reserve is one of the major indicators to really use it to assess whether your currency is going to strengthen or weaken. If it goes lower than expected or even the previous year, it will have an impact that your currency will start devaluing. So that is one of the things that we should pay attention to.
All right, Dr. Baba, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I appreciate it very much. Let me bring in Dr. Mohammed here. So, Kabiru, for you as an opponent, if you like, and sitting on the fence and watching the government and offering suggestions where necessary, what do you think government must do? Are we in danger of slipping back to the 14, 15, and 16 Ghana cedis to the dollar? What do you suggest should be done from now to maybe the end of the term of the government in terms of having a healthy cedi against the major trading currencies?
Well, I would suggest that the government should not keep on keeping the purse tight, because the moment you do that, you are only front-loading the problem that towards the end of the year, when you begin to spend, you are going to cause a sharp depreciation of the cedi again. So the government focus should be about stability rather than the gains or the euphoria or the theatrics of having the cedi come down sharply for the optics.
Right.
Now that we've had this particular level, my suggestion would be that let's focus on stability. The stability brings even predictability, and it also helps in business planning and the cycles of business operation. So that is the first thing. How do we work to ensure stability? Again, I agree with Prof that the cedi's woes is been more or less about expectations and anticipation, where people, if you like, speculate and gamble on same, to the effect that those who are the arbitrage in the market are basically looking forward to trading in the Ghanaian cedi and then the dollar. So they create uncertainty and they feed into the uncertainty and they cash on the uncertainty. So I think that how do we manage the expectation? Government beginning to spend in a more steep manner is going to feed into expectation that is going to depreciate. So if they loosen their fiscal austerity a bit, I'm sure is one way of managing the expectation so that the cedi will not get so much depreciated when things begin to go south. 3, I think that the government would have to, we were cashing in on the back of gold prices going as much as 3,400 per ounce of gold, and the cocoa prices will go. Now the prices are coming down. That is going to feed into expectation. The government will have to, work on this by trying to assure the investor community that, look, our gold production is going to still show up and that we can even get more income or more foreign exchange by way of quantities. Even prices are coming down. It brings certainty to the market and it also works on the expectation. Lastly, I think that the Bank of Ghana's intervention in the market by way of regular auction also brings calm into the market. But if they keep on pushing down the cedi, the dollar artificially, investors or people, speculators will wait. You get your lowest, they'll buy all the dollar and then keep it, waiting for the prices to go up. And it is going to hit the economy, badly. So I think that government should focus on stability and not more about driving it down further. But if they choose that policy option of a stability, I'm sure we'll end the year by some 16 Ghana cedi to the dollar, because analysts are already on this particular point. But the rate would increase depending on how government manage the expectation and also the stability.
And then briefly before you go, your side, you have issues with Isaac Ndongo as member of the Bank of Ghana board and also chairing the Finance Committee of Parliament. You've made this known. I don't know whether you are getting any response as to whether Mr. Ndongo will be changed because of conflict issues.
Well, so this is a question raised by the minority caucus and especially led by the deputy ranking for finance. The finance committee, the safeguards and checks and balances and oversight responsibility put in place certain safeguards to ensure that people act independently, fairly, and then within the laws. The Constitution and also the standing orders of Parliament have so enjoined the finance committee to have oversight over the ministry or over the central bank, especially matters relating to foreign exchange receipt and accounting. Now, Mr. Ndongo sits as non-executive member of the Bank of Ghana and also coming to sit as the ranking or the chairman for the finance committee. You are basically approving your decisions and ratifying those decisions with Parliament, and that does not bring checks and balances. We are of the candid opinion that Mr. Ndongo has to choose one, either to recuse himself from the Finance Committee of Parliament or recuse himself from the board to allow the autonomy and independence. It's not for nothing that Mr. Ndongo, the Bank of Ghana has been made an independent institution. And even I have problem when Mr. Ndongo decided to go into operational matter, cross his legs on TV and try beginning to be talking about operational issues. The Bank of Ghana, realizing the uncertainty that was going to bring to the market, decided to call him to order. I believe that there's no need for the bank to be calling Mr. Ndongo to order. If he decides to excuse himself and then play the oversight, it's better than trying to be in the board and also at the same time having oversight of the board. It cannot work. And if he doesn't, he has not responded, he has not given us indication.
Of course.
But we know we have raised this issue. When Parliament reconvenes on Tuesday, the leadership is going to consider the matter further and probably raise it on the floor for the Speaker's direction on the matter.
All right. Dr. Kabir Mahamatia is a member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, also the member of Parliament for Walla Walla in the Northeast region of the Republic. We're going to take a short break here on the pause. When we return, we're going to talk about decongestion. And this will be what, I've lost count of the number of times we've done decongestion in the Central Business District. But how different is it and how sustainable will this be? When we return, we have answers for you on that particular matter. Stay put. This is the pause here on Joy News. Of course, you're welcome back. This is surely the pause here on Joy News. Your comments, I have loads of them. I'm going to share it with the rest of the world, but you can still send in your comments on the matters that we are discussing. We've had a conversation around the stability of the cedi and the economy as a whole. We are live on X Spaces, on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course on myjoyonline.com. Your comments are welcome. Now, this particular time, something happened in Accra today. Now, the Accra City authorities, they are vowing there will be no return for hundreds of traders who have been cleared off pavements and other open places where they had been displaying their wares in the last few years. Now, the AMA and stakeholders have begun a 3-day decongestion exercise in the Central Business District of Accra and adjoining city centers. Municipal Chief Executive Alfred Gazy warns the agenda to decongest and clean the city will continue despite the pushback from traders. Meanwhile, there's been mixed reaction to the decongestion exercise by the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. While commuters welcome the action, some traders are livid.
The decongestion exercise has begun in earnest this morning, some few minutes ago. I will tell you what we've been capturing here in the past 15 to 20 minutes, but if you see there, you see the AMA officials trying to give some education to the traders here. It is more or less like an educational or public awareness drive than what we anticipated to be a bit more combative approach to the decongestion. So the whole exercise started from the Tudu Market area right opposite the AMA office. And we are currently at the Rolling Spark here in Accra, moving towards the Timber Market area. It will be surprising to know that the entire stretch of the street has been swept clean. There are no traders with their wares on the grounds on the roads as we used to know. On a normal day, when you come to the Rolling Spark area here towards the Timber Market, the entire stretch of the road, both the right and the left shoulders of the road, even to almost the middle of the road, would be encroached by traders with different wares ranging from clothing to foodstuff to cosmetic and anything you can think of. They are serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all on the road. But as at this morning, the warning from the AMA in the last few days, especially from yesterday, that the exercise would happen this morning, has gotten to the grounds. The traders have swept the street clean of their wares. There's nothing on the street. Let me take you to the other side of the road now, where the task force are engaging someone who has already laid their goods on the street, shoes and sandals, ladies and men's wear. What you see there, they are currently helping the traders to pack the goods into the sacks so that they take them off the shoulders of the road. Some people have packed their things. Why are your things still here this morning?
Me pamocho so mo si yam e betuma ba che kakra be sedua me yanko lolo kwan no so ne bre che kakra inta me yetumi sedua no nti sisi aso mo se yansa ni na fi yanko nti eguso.
You didn't know that this place is also part of the place?
Eni mi sa ha kan ho.
Why are you packing to now?
Sisi mo se ha kan ho nti e betuma asesa akwa akire nti e kosto e de kogu watchman na yakofie.
So you are closing for them?
So almost me and Shedwan say about say any baby I could into movie and cast bet my shit, so more say to be Shedwan fine.
Will you come back later?
Yes, madam, you best say here and I went to your best baby I could use.
If you come back, they will come and sack you again.
Oh, what's I come out? Moko so na yakopatch no mu to mu dey best back.
Thank you. What are you selling?
Empower slippers.
And so that's a trader there. my attempt to understand the trip means that she said they've been told to leave the main road, and that's why some of them have decided to put their wares here on the shoulder of the road. But the new instructions to them from the task force now is that even the pavement, the walkway, need to be cleared of every goods. And so she's packing her things back and close for the day. They will go and plead with the task force to know if they'll be allowed back to the place. If they allow them back, they will come back. They will keep coming until they finally settles back again as business as usual. And so that's the situation. Some instructions going to other traders there who are now being instructed to pack their things back again.
Relax. How can you do this? You talk yourself. Is it fair? Is it fair? I can't hear you.
You don't want to challenge you, but they will pick it up.
I'm giving you 3 hours to pick this from here. Thank you very much.
Uncle, what's the issue? What's the discussion with them about?
Oh, they are talking about where we have placed our tables. That's what they are trying to tell me.
Did you get the instruction or the information earlier to pack your things from this place?
Well, they are now coming. Different instructions. This will come, do this. This will come, do this. So there's no any one way. You see?
What were the earlier instructions?
Oh, the instructions was made about 10 days ago.
That you should do what?
We should not come to the road. No, I believe you are not the road. We are not in the road. We are the side. But if power in your hands, you do it the way you want.
You feel they are treating you unfairly?
Well, I won't talk so much.
Right, so my colleague James Aveji, there you saw him. He's in the studio with me. He's returned from this tour of parts of the Central Business District and also Kwale Klote. So James, describe to us how the place look like after the first day of the decongestion exercise.
I wish everybody would go on a short excursion to the Central Business.
We actually got our drones
flying all around.
Yeah, we'll see if we can bring that pictures to our viewers.
Very beautiful. The street is calm, clean, and clear of every form of activity. Things we see on the street, from clothing to shoes to cooking ingredients and all of that, have all been cleared off the street. So if you walk to the Central Business District now, two key things will catch your eye. Mm-hmm. There are no traders sitting on the road itself, the main road itself. Mm-hmm. You would notice pavements that are a bit lifted from the usual ground. Right. They have all climbed the pavement, which the AMA is trying very hard to get them off the pavement as well. Especially in the morning, that was the push they were doing, because in the morning when we got there, the streets were clean. In the evening of yesterday, we had some indication from some of the traders that they will not barge into this, and so they will continue to trade and wait for the task force to come. The opposite of that is what happened in the morning. They didn't set up on the main road. And so the road is clear as we speak. And the second and most important thing is that the usual traffic we used to experience in the CBD from the Accra Technical University traffic light all the way to the Kimbu School's shoulder there, branching to Tudu Road, all the way to Kantamanto. If you take left, you go to Mokola. All of those traffics has been eased now. Cars are moving swiftly. Even though the traffic light, as of today, is not working, those two traffic lights are not working. There is no traffic building up in the area, and it's a beautiful sight to behold. But the big question lingering now is...
No, I just want to find out, so where did they go, the traders?
The traders, so they have had to shift themselves and park. They have to park themselves on the pavement. If you go to the Mokola area, those of them who trade, when you are walking from Mokola to the Rolling Square, all the way to the Timber Market. They have all left the road now, and they are perching at the feet of the huge market stores that have been built. They are all perching in there, squeeze themselves to that particular location. And so that's where they are now. For those of them who have pavement in the middle of the road, they are parked on that particular pavement. For those of them who have spaces in front of the shops, huge story building shops, they are now parked on those frontals of those shops.
And I also got the information that the MC for Koliklote gives an indication that they may allow the traders to trade twice in a week. Is this something that they have affirmed?
Exactly. So that was the final update we got at Kaneshie, where we went to terminate the entire process. So we did Accra Central at the first batch, and then as at about 10 o'clock, we went for a break, and then they informed us that they will be continuing to Circle and then onward to Kaneshie. And so we came back to Circle, and quite some activities. The indication we get from Circle is that they have not had any prior notice to what has happened.
To move out.
To move out. But interestingly, a large portion of the roads at Circle have been cleared, except the pavement where they squeezed at. And then we went to Kaneshie, where, as for Kaneshie, they have marked, done some red markings on the pavement.
They are not supposed to.
Exactly, that they are supposed to move beyond, which the inspection of tomorrow will look at all of that to see if they are complying. And then we moved from there. Then we had the final update for the day at the AMA annex at North Kaneshie.
Right.
And so there, the MC for Koliklote constituency, Honorable Alfred Gazy, who we have realized that have been leading this task force hand in hand with the mayor. If you notice the first press conference, he led the press conference, and then the mayor came to finalize it. It was the same thing that happened. Then he gave the indication that what they are trying to do for those at the Central Business District for Kantamanto and then Tudu areas, the plan is that they are thinking of giving them some 2 days to trade in the course of the week. For which particular 2 days, they are not yet
clear for now.
And whether they are definite on that policy direction is still not yet clear. We are hoping that by the time we end the 2-3 days, they have given us that they will be doing this continuously for the next 3 days. And so for the next 3 days, it will now be clearer as to whether they will take a final decision on that. And if they do, which 2 days of the week, they will be allowing the traders to come back to the street and then trade and go back. And how they plan to make sure that they go according to that in those 2 days.
All right, James, thank you so much for coming through for us. We'll be speaking to the Public Relations Officer of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly when he joins us. But let me bring in Dr. Eric Oduo Osai. He's a local governance expert, and he joins me via Zoom. Dr. Osai, good afternoon, and a pleasure to speak to you on the pulse.
Afternoon.
Great. So, I mean, this is not the first, obviously not the second, the third. This is like what? I mean, I've lost count of the number of times we've undertaken a decongestion exercise in the Greater Accra metropolis, and of course, in the major urban areas like Kumasi, Takoradi, and the likes. So, it usually happens in the first term of any government. They take advantage of their newest in office and then undertake some of these things. Sustaining it now becomes a challenge. I mean, you are witnessing what is happening now. How do we sustain this?
Thank you very much. I think that it is about lack of political will and inability of local government authorities to enforce their bylaws to the last. That is what is bringing us where we are today. You see, local governance is about the local government administration formulating bylaws to manage the locality. And in this case, AMA. AMA have bylaws, and these bylaws are expected to be implemented so that citizens, traders, hawkers will know what they are supposed to do, what they are not supposed to do, where they are supposed to sell, where they are not supposed to sell, so that at least the city will be clean. But in time past, what we have done is that we have played politics with these kinds of things. Going forward, I think that the city authorities must give true meaning to decentralization by enforcing their bylaws. Now, in enforcing your bylaws, you have to create an alternative avenue for these traders to sell. Because the traders pay market tolls to the local government authorities, and they use these market tolls to finance their activities. So what I think the various chief executives of the local government authorities should be doing is that they should think outside the box as to how they can effectively enforce their bylaws and also creating an alternative market for the local economy to thrive so they will be able to mobilize revenue. If they fail to do that, they are failing to allow decentralization to operate as it ought to be. Our main problem as a country is that we play politics with this kind of activity.
You're right.
In an election year, they may not want to sack them. They will wait after election and then they will chase them. A chief executive may want to chase them out of the street. You get an order from above telling the chief executive not to proceed. And the way chief executive appointments are, once the order comes from above, the chief executive is afraid. So again, one way out is let us go the hall, let us fight the bullet, have chief executives elected so they can crack the whip and enforce the bylaws to the letter.
Dr. Said, the AMA chief executive says that they have markets that are not being utilized by the traders. They reference the Osu markets and few other markets. And so the traders should just pack their wares and go to some of these markets and work there. Is it a case that as a country, we've over-concentrated development in certain areas to the detriment of the others, such that traders and indeed everybody want to move to a certain direction? The reason why we are having a no solid permanent solution to this issue.
I think that may be one of the problems. But you see, for you to say, for AMA to say that the traders should move to a market in Osu, which is less populated, meaning they may not allow decentralization to work as it ought to be. Because Osu is also under a local government authority.
Right.
And they would have to promote that market. So what they need to do is to think outside the box and create an alternative market arrangement that would clear the street of these hawkers and traders, and also create an alternative market for them so they can get their revenue. I think that the chief executive might think outside the box. Now, about over-concentrating development in one area, you are right. I think as a country, we should start having a second strategy and a third strategy. A third strategy as to how we can decongest the entire capital city and make sure that other local government areas would also benefit from the business that is thriving in the central business district of Accra. And this requires a strategy. So I always say that chief executives are not called chief executives for nothing. They are called chief executives because they have to think outside the box and they have to manage the cities like businesses.
And then they say that they are doing this for 3 days. And then they will leave their men there, hopefully for a week or two. Maybe in July, in August, September, we were back to this discussion where we will have the place overrun by the traders again. And then another strategy will have to be developed. Public funds will have to be spent on getting rid of them. The cycle obviously will not end. Prof.
The cycle can end if the chief executive, together with the assembly, map out a short, medium, and long-term strategy. And in this strategy, they should carry the traders along. Like I said, they should develop an alternative way of having their bylaws implemented. Development is partnership. So you can't go in and throw them out there. And it is expensive to embark on decongestion. The question then is, who is paying for this congestion? They are going to get money from the traders. So it requires a short, medium, and long-term strategy. And it requires a sustainable effort to make sure that they clear them off the street and give them an alternative livelihood that can help the assembly to mobilize revenue. We should depoliticize these kinds of things. I think that in the past, like I said, we have politicized it, and it will continue to affect us if we politicize it. Take the politics out And let citizens understand that it is in their own interest. It is in the interest of society. It is in the interest of even the people who come to buy their wares, for them to be off the street. But this is the alternative we provided for you. And the alternative would also give you the market that you need. Let them understand your strategy and carry them along. But this machoism, this going there to put them off the street will not help, because they will come back. And it is a very expensive venture. I wonder how they are going to sustain it financially. They should continue to talk to them. They should continue to strategize and let the strategy be open so that people can support them in implementing it. And this should start across the entire areas, urban areas across the country. It should not be only AMA. Same must happen in SCMB, same must happen in Tema, same must happen in KMB, same must happen in Tamale Metropolitan Assembly, and other urban areas. So what it then means is that they have to work with the ministry responsible for local government to develop this medium to long-term strategy so that we can see nice and better cities as we see when we travel outside this country.
All right, I'd like to appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Dr. Eric Odosai is a local governance expert, and he also joined us with his expert advice on this particular matter. Now, Gilbert Ankra is a public relations officer of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. He was on the streets today. He's back in the office, reflecting on the day's event. So, Gilbert, your assessment of how today went. And if you can unmute for me, Gilbert. Right, so let's see if we can bring in the public relations officer of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly about today's exercise and how they are hoping to, progress into the next day and then the weeks and months to follow in terms of dealing with this matter. Let me see if I can get the attention of Gilbert Ankra. Mr. Ankra, good afternoon.
Hello? Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, so I was asking your assessment of how today went for the AMA.
Thank you for the opportunity once again. Today's exercise for the Mayor, Honorable Michael Pakwalote. The exercise was very, very successful. If you look at what happened, especially with them traders on the streets, we were able to move them on the street. And for us, it has been very, very successful. We deployed 156 officers to kick off this very exercise. And the main purpose was very, very clear to ensure that trading activities, especially on the streets and on the pavement, were clear. Just as we've said, today's exercise began as early as 4 a.m. The mayor himself supervised the deployment of the officers, and the targeted areas were within the Kimbo Street and the extended through Mokola, CMB, the Circle, and then the Kanishi area. Kanishi was quite fantastic. If you look on the footbridges, none of the traders are on the footbridges. And the entire street, the entire area was cleared. And for us, you can see the free flow of traffic. Right. We are quite hopeful that the traders will continue to adhere to the directives. And the mayor has assured that all interventions he has decided to put in place in the coming days, we are going to roll these ones out. Right.
So the traders who hitherto had, adopted the pavement as their trading area, after moving them, you left them on their own, or you directed them to move their way to a specific place to trade?
Well, those of them who were cleared from the pavements, the assembly is looking at redemarcating these pavements so that at least we will be able to reposition them. What we normally have is that a lot of the traders they pack more of their wares. For instance, if you are selling you are selling a shoe, you have them bringing that particular one item. They have a lot of them displayed, and we are telling them to desist from some of those things. We will come back and then redemarcate the pavement so that a lot more of them will be able to have some areas to trade, whilst pedestrians will also have some areas to be able to move about their daily duties.
All right, Gilbert, thank you so much. Let's leave it here for now. I understand that this is ongoing for the next 3 days. We probably do a proper analysis of it and then find out how long you hope to keep your man there to ensure that they don't come back to the very place that they've been taken off today. Thank you very much. Gilbert Ankra is the public relations officer of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. You can join us with your questions if you have, whether you are certain that this will be the final time we'll have traders competing with vehicles in the business district of Accra. But let's deal with another story now. Now, teachers of the University of Ghana are threatening to petition the president for the removal of Johnson Akwamwa Esiama, that's the Auditor General, for what they claim is the lowering of standards in auditing public institutions. A special payroll verification audit report published by the Auditor General indicates the University of Ghana was the biggest culprit in terms of inflating salary claims among government institutions. The university alone, according to the report, accounted for, let's talk about somewhere around 59.2 billion Ghana cedis. And the University of Ghana is unhappy with it. Let's listen to them.
But be it as it may, this report is not an isolated incident. It sits within the job that was done by the Auditor General. This report, as distasteful as it is simply predicated on the poor job that was done by the audit service. The standards of auditing, in our opinion, has plummeted in recent years, and if care is not taken, would have serious consequences for the nation. It appears to us that the audit service is more interested in appearing to be working rather than doing the right thing, and in so doing, they ignore ethical standards that guide their profession. University of Ghana management maintains that the initial audit report was not shared with them for them to make comments and clarify any discrepancies before this was made public. This is grossly unfair and unethical. This is a serious breach of the ethical standards required for the audit service and its profession. And for the Auditor General to sit in his office and preside over such an institution that disregards ethical standards and standard practice, we are hereby calling for the resignation of the Auditor General honorably, or we will petition the President for him to be removed. We do not say this because we have personal issues with the Auditor General, but we believe that the audit service, or auditing in general in this country, has become a tool for intimidating and disallowing legitimate payments, especially to subvented institutions in Ghana. We also want to state that the situation where auditing has been used as a tool to disallow payment of legitimate claims from subvented institutions must stop with immediate effect. And I'm going to cite one example of such indiscretionary use of power to the disadvantage of subvented institutions to back this claim. Within the public service, all people who are on steady leave with pay are paid all their allowances and salary. UTAG members were denied this for a very long time. Since last year, we negotiated same with government, and government agreed, and all relevant agencies signed to this. Despite the fact that this document is readily available to the audit service and copies were provided to them, payments by the University of Ghana to people on steady leave with pay have been disallowed and are part of the so-called disallowed claim or illegitimate claims made by the university.
Well, let's stay with this because the university teachers are also launching an attack on the multimedia group for carrying this story that publicly accusing the outlets of, quote, lowering journalistic standards. Now, joining me in the studio right now is senior news editor Evans Mensah as we look at it. Evans, you're welcome. So let me just go through what he said. He said the multimedia group is gradually developing a penchant for misrepresenting things about the University of Ghana. A similar case in point is a report on medallion for graduating students where it alleged that some 11 million cedis had been collected by the university to provide medallion and then scroll holders to graduate students but failed to do so, which also turned out to be false. And they think that we are after them. I mean, what will be your response to the group's reportage on the Auditor General's report?
Our reportage is accurate. It's accurate to the extent that we're reporting an official document issued and transmitted to Parliament.
And published on the website of
Parliament. You, for a second, disregard the publication on the website. This is a formal audit report that had been completed and transmitted to the Speaker of Parliament. It is now in the custody of the one arm of government, Parliament. It is now going to be a subject of the Public Accounts Committee hearing. The Auditor General's office is a constitutional body tasked to audit institutions like the University of Ghana. So the absurd suggestion that the lecturers are now inviting us to engage in is that when a constitutional body, an institution created by statute, puts out a formal report that has been transmitted formally to Parliament, is now going to be a subject of public accounts hearing, at which we know the heads of that institution will have to now go and answer.
Absolutely.
They're now telling us, as journalists, when you get that report, which, by the way, we didn't secretly procure.
No.
It's widely available. We should not publish it unless and until we have spoken to them. Where is the logic in that? When, by the way, this document had been published as of at least the 27th of February.
Of course.
The transmittal letter to the Speaker of Parliament is dated the 27th of February. We published this on the 16th of May. At least almost 3 months had passed since that letter went to the Speaker of Parliament, and it was published on the website of the Auditor General. The University of Ghana, negligently so, were not aware that he had been published. They only waited to see it on myjoyonline.com before they began to react to it. We were talking about publication. The basic understanding of what publication is once you put out a document to third parties, you published it. It was on the website of the audit service. If the university really cared about its reputation, as they now claiming they do, and they have issued a statement last week, the university management itself did. Now UTAG is now responding to it. Singling out a media organizer simply was reporting the facts as found by the Auditor General, which is now going to be subject of a parliamentary hearing. If they really cared about their reputation, what they would have done was to respond to that audit report when it was first published on his website.
And usually my thinking is that, I mean, I've gone through a lot of Auditor General's report. There's always a management response.
And let me emphasize that point. That's a very good point. Again, when you read the methodology in this very report that they're now criticizing, of course, if you can criticize it, of course, the Auditor General's report. But when you now begin to accuse the media house of being unprofessional, then you must be absolutely certain that you know what you're talking about. You have a methodology, and we did a very thorough job here. We are not just like any other media house. They think they've been reading. The methodology in this document says the Auditor General came to the conclusions he came to based on a number of documents they had reviewed, including the management letters that were issued. He said that in the methodology. And to think that this is coming from lecturers. So you see our Auditor General saying to you that I had already engaged the management on the matter. And the outcome is a reflection of a complete assessment of all the facts before the Auditor General. They are telling us that we should wait to hear from the University of Ghana before we publish it. When indeed, the Auditor General himself had long published it. Right. You see, you know what is good about this? It's good that they are lecturers and not journalists. They don't understand, obviously, what we do as professional journalists. So you can forgive them. But what they cannot do is call us names, call us, bunch of journalists who have dropped the standards. I think if any group of people who really believe that their reputation is really worth anything, if anybody had dropped the standard, University of Ghana, you think that they will have accountants, you think that people there will be monitoring the publications. If indeed your reputation, you would have gone out there, found that document, responded to it. You know another thing that is alarming? They have been going on this media tirade accusing JoyNews and our report, but nowhere have I heard that they have taken the actual step that could change the findings of the Auditor General. As in, write formally to the Auditor General, registering their protests and offering the clarity they claim they have. I haven't heard any single member of the university community say that they have taken that step. Rather, they are holding press conferences to give clarifications and issuing statements. That doesn't really go to the heart of trying to clarify. But a few fundamental questions must be asked because they questioned our report. Did the Auditor General, which is a constitutional legal body, find that the University of Ghana overstated its compensation by 59.24 million cedis? Yes.
As far as the document is concerned, that is factual.
Absolutely. Until the Public Accounts Committee looks into the matter, hears it, and discounts the findings, it is the fact. And nothing that the University of Ghana says right now will change what has been put in an audit document transmitted to Parliament other than to offer clarification. And indeed, they have what they claim to be clarifications. And their quarrel, Elting, is really with the Auditor General.
Yeah, they are demanding for his resignation.
Yes,
that is their business.
Their quarrel is with the Auditor General and not with the journalist that simply reported the document that had been published by the Auditor General. It is not with that journalist. So for them to take very cheap shots at my colleague and at this media house that is absolutely professional, it's very unfortunate.
And then they also mentioned, for example, that this is not the first time. Then they come to the conclusion that perhaps there's an agenda within the multimedia group to run down the university. Is there something like that?
Oh, absolutely not. Well, why would we have an agenda against the University of Ghana? We will absolutely not have one. And this is a clear case that proves the point that we have no agenda. We did not manufacture one single fact in the report that we put out. They have not disputed the facts that we put out, as in the facts that had been produced in a certified, finalized audit report by the Auditor General and transmitted to the Speaker of Parliament. So where is the agenda? We're simply reporting a document produced by another state agency. How is that part of a conspiracy? We did not originate and produce the facts in the document. We did not do that. We simply were reporting the facts as they found it. And also because if you look at the original statement, the first statement that came from the University of Ghana, they say that the Auditor General misunderstood and did not create the distinction between what they call the IGF payroll and the Government of Ghana payroll, and that they put all together. And that is why they came to the conclusion they came to in the audit report. But until that distinction is created, it is the report. And we can simply report what the Auditor General had put out. If you had any clarifications, they should have been more proactive in responding to the publication I was done originally by the Auditor General on the 27th of February 2025. So I honestly do not see the point of the university in coming at us. You claim, first of all, is it factual that they paid the salaries of staff that they had hired outside what the Government of Ghana had given them clearance for? The answer is yes.
Right.
Why did they do that? They have an explanation for it. Why did they do that? They claim that they had been given clearance to employ a number that would not deliver on quality, education quality in the university, and that it would not help with the teacher-student ratio. Right? And so they had to bring in, as they explained, lecturers who had retired and put them on the IGF and pay them there. And the Auditor General audited it and put them together and reported it as being disallowed and savings made because they had overstated what the Government of Ghana had given them clearance to employ. That is the Auditor General's finding, and that is what we simply reported. So where have we gone wrong? But I come back to the point I made earlier. The only good thing about this is that the individuals speaking, both the university management, I don't know who signed it, and the
lecturers,
the union, they are not journalists. So they don't understand the way we operate. They had made a point there that it is the standard that you have to check with the individual against him an allegation. The person who must do that and is obliged to do so, as far as the ethics and the professional dictates of the profession is concerned, called auditing, is the Auditor General. And the Auditor General, in his methodology, told us in this report that they have evaluated management letters that had been issued and came to the conclusion. So what's the point there?
Of course, so the entire report is on the website of the Auditor General. You can go out there and have a look at it yourself. We only reported what the Auditor General put out there, transmitted to the Speaker of Parliament, inviting the Public Accounts Committee to probe further into the matter. Nothing that we reported came from our head. It came from the Auditor General's report put together by after perusing whatever information that were available to them. But Evan, thank you so much for coming through. And then let me also say that at some point, the day after this publication was made, the University of Ghana had their say on this particular matter, as reported by JoyNews on JoyNews Prime. So,
and that to be emphasized, it is not true that we didn't give them a hearing.
Right.
We actually hosted them on Joy Prime. At what point on that particular show, one of the operatives and agents of the university was on the show to respond to the matter.
Of course.
So what are they saying that we didn't even give them a hearing on the matter? We did on our platforms. But of course, the University of Ghana wouldn't know, would they?
Okay. All right. So the show, as always, is brought to you by Defend Drill Cough, Expectorant, it clears chest congestion, smoothies cough, and fight the common cold, helping you breathe easy and feel better. Defend Drill is available at all pharmacies and OTCs across Ghana. Not recommended for children under 6 years. For back purchase, please visit Rapid Improvement Pharmaceuticals. They are located on the Spinters Road next to the Royal House Chapel. Better still, give them a call on 053-666-1432. That's 053-666-1432. Defend Drill, breathe easy, feel better. We shall be back. We're back, and of course, we are ending it for today. It's been exciting. I enjoyed every bit of it, and I want to appreciate all those who tune in on our social media handles on X Spaces. I'm enjoying the conversation there. YouTube, Facebook, the same. Tomorrow we shall do it again. But for more stories, log on to our website, myjoyonline.com. Resign honorably. That's University of Ghana Teachers Association to the Auditor General over what they describe as unethical audit report. Sam George demands retraction of Lexus gift allegation by MPP activists. Folks, I'm done for today. Whatever you are up to in the hours ahead, I hope is profitable. My name is Elton Brobe. Have a good evening. Take care. Same time tomorrow, we shall be here with another exciting edition of the Pulse. Until then, be good.